स्क्रीन पे अनिल जी सिर्फ आप आ जाए. ओके, ब्रॉडकास्ट.
हाय आने वाला है ना. Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to all our guests and viewers. Today we have a very interesting topic for discussion, reimagining education for every child. To give their valuable, experienced, innovative, unorthodox, and avant-garde inputs, propositions, and opinions on the topic, we have a very distinguished panel with us today. Let me introduce our first panelist, Manish Jan. Manish Jan is deeply committed to regenerating our diverse local knowledge systems, cultural imaginations, and intercultural dialogue. He has served for the past 23 years as Chief Beaver of Shikshantar, the People's Institute for Rethinking Education and Development, based in Udaipur, and is co founder of the Swaraj University, the Jain University, Complexity University, Hunarshala Tribal Youth Leadership Academy, the Creativity Adda, the Learning Societies, Unconference, the Walk On Network, Udaipur as a learning city, the Families Learning Together Network in India, Barkana Exchange. He co-founded the Global Ecoversities Alliance with 300 plus members in 40 countries. He's a senior advocate advisor to the Economics of Happiness Network for Localization. Manish has been invited to give inspiring public keynote speeches on reimagining education in many countries such as USA, England, Portugal, Brazil, Mexico, India. He has edited several books on Vimukt Shiksha. Prior to this, Manish worked as one of the principal team members of the UNESCO Learning Without Frontiers global initiative in Paris headquarters. He has also been a consultant to UNICEF, World Bank, USAID in Africa, South Asia, and former Soviet Union. Manish worked as an investment banker with Morgan Stanley. He has been trying to unlearn his master's degree in education from Harvard University and a BA in economics, international development, and political philosophy from Brown University. Our second panelist of the day, Mr. Sumanto Ghosh, has more than 30 years of experience in the field of education and training. He's a very well known and respected name in training and skill development. Sumanto Ghosh founded the International Institute of Training and Institute of Training and Management, a training and skill development institute in Kolkata more than 3 decades back, and has never looked back since then. He has a diploma in psychological counseling, a certified counselor for children and adolescents, law of attraction coach, certified emotional intelligence practitioner, diploma in relationship counseling from Q Academy, apart from postgraduate diploma in business administration. He has trained more than 30,000 people in schools and colleges. He has delivered more than 3,500 hours of professional training and more than 4,000 hours of R&D in various skills training. He has authored and compiled more than 16 books on computer programming for beginners, primary school children. With such a distinguished panel of guests, I leave the floor open. Let's start off with Manish. Manish, what do you think about reimagining education? What are your viewpoints on this?
Thank you, Anil Bhai. It's very nice to be with everyone today. So I think that reimagining is education is the need of the hour. This project was first initiated almost 100 years back by Gandhiji, Tagore, many of our freedom fighters who saw education as a tool for mental slavery and colonization. And we still continue with the same education model, more or less. And so reimagining means to me, it's actually going to the very fundamentals of redesigning the education system. So I would make strong caution to just thinking we can add on bandages to the existing system, and actually we need to go much deeper. I like to share that the design of the current, what I call factory schooling model, is the same design of the prison system, the same design of the army system, and the same design of the factory system. So we need to really rethink that, and I think reimagine along three levels. One is the purpose of education, and the purpose I would like to initiate is more understanding ourselves. Why are we here? Who are we? as well as understanding our society and how we can find meaningful roles in dealing with the major challenges facing our society and ecosystem. Today, education is really disconnected from most of the students are disconnected from the fundamental questions of our times. The second area of design, I think, is around the area of pedagogy. So much more hands-on, experiential, democratic, collaborative, transdisciplinary pedagogy. And the last area I would say is around the 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 idea of the teacher, the people involved in the education process. So really being able to expand our idea to see, people who are in villages as being teachers, people who are tribal communities being teachers, people who are, grandparents being our teachers again. People, not just the people with the B.Ed or M.Ed degrees, but actually the people who are, social leaders, business leaders who are really shaping the society, have to invite them into education um, process. And even I would say, even we can think beyond the idea of just human beings as the teachers. Maybe the river is a teacher. Maybe the mountains or the trees or the animals can be our gurus. So this is one thing, and I basically think that Gandhiji had talked about education. Nay Talim should have the head, the heart, the hands, and the home, four H's. And
Yeah.
so even today, we're just stuck with the head, a very fragmented, linear, rational mind, what I call two-dimensional minds. And so we need to shift our education model from two-dimensional to three-dimensional learning. So I'll just stop there and invite my colleague Sumanto to also. I'd love to hear his ideas as well.
Yeah, so quite very simple yet very revolutionary ideas put in a very nutshell. I will speak more about it. So I'd like Sumanto to give his viewpoint. He has also got a very huge experience in skill development and training. So I'd like to know his views also.
That is very relevant. Today, the education system which is there, which are being followed traditionally, is something that keeps us desiring for more, wherein the learning is unidirectional, which is more of memorizing of certain texts. People need to learn to become more alive. With such an education system, we tend to become half dead. That is what I have been believing. While I started my career as a school teacher way back in 1991 around DPS Mathura Road in Delhi, that was the first assignment. Then I moved on into Lawrence School, Sanawar, and I have been into multiple schools across this country. And what I had faced as a student still continues in the same model of education. People have to learn to be at one with the universe and be useful to the rest of the world. Education has to be that where I become somebody who is valuable to the whole universe, somebody who adds value to this society. This current education system actually is making me mugging up few things which are written, many facts which are sometimes twisted based on political reasons, and we grew up very confused. We don't know why we studied, what we studied, how to utilize it. There's no practical application. So education has to be more practical in nature, which teaches me how I could help others and how I could help myself being a better human being for the whole of the universe, not just this world. Then this fragmentation in the mind, which is there based on political divisions, religious divisions, geographical divisions, that has to vanish. Education should be that where the mind actually becomes free. That is what I believe reimagination education should mean, where I make the whole paradigm shift of the way education is delivered and what in the name of education is delivered and how it is delivered. So when I talk of reimagining education, it is about what, how goes on in the name of education. I think that is my initial opinion. क्या कहते हैं
Thank you,
अमरीश sir?
Sumanto. Thank you so much. I think very well said. Both of you have got such a vast experience. But Manish, tell me, you have been in this field for quite some time. Some experiences where which have actually made a mark uh, and have uh, made you believe that this is the way forward, the reimagination of education. Because actually working on the ground and talking about the things are completely different things. You have worked in the on the ground in these things. Can you give me one or two examples where you feel that yes, this has this has made me stronger in my belief that this is the right way? Manish, your mic is muted, so can you please unmute your mic?
Yeah, I want to share two very personal examples, and then maybe something from our work. My personal example is that the reason I left UNESCO, and I might be the first person who resigned from a UN post. But when I realized that my illiterate village grandmother was more intelligent than my Harvard professor, UNESCO colleagues. And I really felt this in terms of deep understanding about self awareness of who am I and how to live a good life, a life in harmony with myself and with the planet and with building a healthy community. I felt my grandmother had much more to offer in terms of really understanding happiness in a deeper level than any of the colleagues I had in these different institutions. And the second very personal thing is, I have a 19-year-old daughter, so she has actually lived the whole process of a reimagining education, and I have been great beneficiary of that. She has never gone to school. She has never looked at a textbook. She's never taken an examination. She's not running after a degree. She's not mugging anything. But her range of experiences in life and her creativity and her integrity and her ability to think more holistically and compassionately has been something that has really inspired me. And the other thing I would say is that we often think that this idea of reimagining education is only for the is a luxury for the elite. Most of the alternative schools and opportunities are for elite. But we have initiated what we call an unschooling center in some government schools in Delhi and in tribal village in Rajasthan, also in Dungarpur. And I have to tell you, this is uh, the the children from these so-called marginalized backgrounds, underprivileged backgrounds, when they get a different kind of learning space where they can actually do things practically, where they can, where their opinions are um, are valued, where they're able to drive their own learning program. We have seen these kids, flourish, and these are particularly. I've had hundreds of cases where teachers have said, ये तो शैतानी बच्चा था, या आपने इसके साथ क्या कर दिया. So I think whether it's in these places, this model is not only for the rich or the elite. It's something that really every child deserves. And we have also tried our model of reimagining education in the Udaipur jail. We've created a project called the Jail University, and we've seen again inmates, convicted inmates, who have thrived with this new kind of educational model, and in terms of their confidence and their compassion and their creativity and their desire to really work for the betterment of society. So I can give you many examples of that. But What I like to say is all of our reimagining education isn't a dream. It's happening every day around us. I've experienced it in my own life in thousands of different ways. It's a very practical thing that we can all start doing today.
Thank you, Manish. Very powerful points from your own life. That gives us a lot of hope that yes, this is the way forward. Looking at the cultures around the world, most of the cultures were in tune with nature. I'm reminded of a story where when Europeans first went to America and they asked the Red Indians, "We want to buy your land." So Red Indians could not understand what buy the land means. They said, "This land belongs to everybody. It doesn't belong to me, it's for everybody." So wherever the cultures were with in tune with nature, worshipping the nature around us, that thing, apart from certain small places around the globe, has not been there since long. So, Sumanto, my question to you is, how do we go into that space? What are the things that we, as citizens of this world, should be able to do in our own space so that we make a small start in that direction?
Thanks. In line with what Manish ji was mentioning, we had also started a similar experimental school here in one district called Birbhum in Bengal for a backward area which is tribal infested, which is primarily a tribal zone. While the governments here across the country are facing problems that children are dropping out from school, we started with about 7 children that went to 17, and today we have close to about 90 students studying there in Lalbari. They are coming on their own because the education that we are providing is based on what they need, uh, how they become more useful, and truly we respect their views and what they see. So the learning is self inspired. We have been talking of pedagogy and the way to teach children. Here we are more talking of facilitation as a way of teaching, helping them to find out and become more inquisitive. More of the way that we are talking of is increase the curiosity factor within the students. You know, make the mind more curious, where they want to know more, where they want to know more, and that has been one thing that we have been following in that experiment. We did not teach them algebra, no a square plus b square plus c square and tan theta and cos theta, but they have started learning history. They started wanting to know more about their background. They would started learning about agriculture, because all around them they see their parents and others into agriculture. So they started learning very early. How can I do this? How can I do that? How do I grow a better crop? What else could be done? They started developing skills which their parents could not think of. Handicrafts and learning practically has been what we have been talking of. So if we could do it, I'm sure all of us could start similar experiment in our local area where we try to impart education in a different model for those who are underprivileged, who are not exposed to this formal method of teaching, or who are not having the advantage of going to school always. That would be the beginning. And gradually, if each one can start creating such small pockets of curious people around them, I think reimagining education would start becoming a reality faster. It's more about raising their curiosity factor. That's what I believed in, and we started with that as an experiment, and surely it worked. And the students started bringing in more friends to join the group, and today our family is full. We are looking forward to acquiring more space, having a formal building where they assemble. We play games together. Uh, Very young children have started playing chess and doing many other things which their parents could not think of. That is how we begin. Let us all take this small step of starting these community curiosity increasing centers, beyond talking them as education and literacy program and all that. Can we run simple curiosity increasing centers where we make the mind more curious and then learning would happen on their own? I think that's the next step that we all can do on our own. Yeah.
Thank you, Sumanto, for that personal experience which you have shared. Manish, coming back to you, I have got this question is always at the back of my mind. The dichotomy between unlearning, as you say, and technology. So, do you see technology as something that will help in unlearning, or do you see technology as something which will help people to move forward? Because by 2030, there will be around 3.5 billion students as well as young adults who would need to get educated or uneducated, if I use your the way you say it. The spread and the connectivity and the reach are a major advantage. So should we use technology for them, or what is your viewpoint on this?
So I think that with the technology question, it's a very important question. We have right now, I think we are in a very strange process of technology sleepwalking. Whatever technology is coming from corporate houses or from from the military establishment, we are blindly accepting those technologies. So I think technology has a role. I think one of the core challenges for all people involved in education is how do we start to raise critical and curious conversations about the technologies. How are they impacting us? What does artificial intelligence mean? What's its implications? Who controls it? What is with about all the surveillance that is coming with technology? What is the ecological costs of the technology? How does the technology affect our children? How does it affect our social relationships, or even how does it affect our love lives? All kinds of questions are there, which I think are, this is probably the most exciting and also challenging question of our time is really what does technology mean. So I think beyond whether which platform or which app or those, I think the more fundamental question is to really come to a meta level and really think about what do these technologies mean and who's controlling them and for what purposes. And each technology, there's an Amish community in the United States. They have a very good process. Any technology,
Yeah.
they observe it for 1 year. How does it impact their lives? So I would call for more of that in the educational process itself. And the other thing is, the technologies are taking us. There are many kinds of technologies. We've forgotten, simple technologies like the Favra, the hoe, the shovel, the technologies like, the harmonium, technologies like, so many local technologies which are actually every day benefiting people's lives and which always can be improved. And I think a lot of our intention around technology is only going to the digital world,
Yeah.
and we're not looking at local technologies for facing the challenges. I was at um, a friend had invited me yesterday to a startup competition, and everybody's looking at this app and that app, but these very real challenges. Our soil is in crisis. We have a major water crisis in this country. We have air pollution crisis. We have health crisis. So many different things, and we need to look at a whole much wider range of technologies of how do we solve our local problems. So I think that for me, reimagining education. One is really about thinking about these technologies more deeply, and also thinking about what is our idea of economy. Are we only connected to the global economy, or how do we strengthen our own local economies, uh, our local entrepreneurship process? Because there's a major crisis. The promise of this factory schooling model was you go do well and you'll get a job, and you'll get a job and you'll be happy. But everything that we're seeing is saying that that has been a massive lie. There's
Yeah.
studies that saying that 80% of the people out there hate their jobs. Those who get the
Yeah.
jobs, 80% hate them. And then
Correct.
we're seeing massive unemployment. The school system, the best thing the school system is today good at is producing pade leke berozgar people. This is what it's producing. This is its
Yeah.
final output, and this will
Correct.
be the primary reason. And it's not only this; it's also producing massive mental health epidemic in our country. So many children who are going into deep crisis, emotional crisis, anxiety, depression, suicide. This is the education system. So this is a need of the hour. We look at it. The one last thing I want to say is that. Reimagining cannot happen. If I look back at where did people like Gandhiji and Tagore, who I mentioned earlier, were calling for reimagining, where did they go wrong? They and even Vinoba Bhave, Krishnamurti, many of our greatest thinkers have called for this. Where they went wrong is they thought, look at the education system in isolation. So we need to look at the education system first in terms of uh, this whole question of the diploma game. So we have a campaign called "Healing Ourselves from the Diploma Disease," and we've contacted thousands of companies and NGOs, organizations, and said, "Can you hire people without a diploma or degree if they have real skills and real experience?" So we need to radically shift the focus of employment from degrees to and pieces of paper which don't tell you anything about the person or their capacities, to actually focusing on real skills and experiences. And if employers start demanding that, the system will start to change, for example. And the other thing is really to think of, with this an employment crisis, how do we prepare people to be entrepreneurs, to be community leaders, to deal with their problems? And this is a radically different approach that's needed. It cannot happen within the framework of schools. I liked what Sumanto ji was saying about also, we need to probably think of how do we dissolve the disciplines. These areas of math and biology, chemistry, these are not the ways to look at society. We are facing very complex problems, and we need more integrated, holistic ways of seeing. So we should ask, like take something like, the question, how do I grow my own food? This is one of the questions I give to we call our students, by the way, kojis, seekers. One of the questions we give is, how do you grow your own food? So in all of that, there's, every discipline comes into play, and you start to
Yeah.
get more into an integrated holistic. Or how do I what does it mean to conserve water, or how do I clean this polluted water system? That's these are kind of questions which will start to mobilize all different kinds of thinking and bring us to a much more holistic and collaborative way forward.
Sir, exactly in the same way we had started our experiment at Lalbadi. It was this fundamental question with which we had started.
Yes.
Coincidentally, we had similar thought. We have actually practically implemented that. And that has made them curious about geography, about history, water conservation, even rainwater harvesting. You won't believe how much children who are at the age group of class 6, 7, they are talking of how to do rainwater harvesting. I mean, the terminology may not be rainwater harvesting as such, but they're actually asking for it. Sir, how can we preserve and store it? Is it essential that we will only have open ponds? Can we have underground ponds, hidden ponds, so that the water does not evaporate due to sunlight? That's something very great. A child asking such a question, that can we have an underground hidden pond where the heat does not evaporate the water during summer? That is what is the essence of the new education. Yes, it does start with How do you grow your own food and sustain yourself? Then the whole problem of getting into a job goes away. And once that goes away, then this rat race of going to the school also would be reduced. Very true,
Yeah,
sir.
so
Yeah,
very, as I said before, seem to be very radical thoughts, but looking at it very closely, I think they are the thoughts which are very simple, closer to the nature. And I can't thank enough Manish and Sumanto for coming and sharing this thing. But at the same time, I would like to kill Rahul Sharma because he has given such a brief span of time to discuss such an interesting and stimulating subject
yeah,
which affects everybody. So I would have very much liked this discussion to go on because this is
surely.
such an interesting debate, and people would like to know about it because this affects their life, the way they live, the way they think, their mental state. It affects everything. So I would have liked, but I'll meet him and kill him for this, and I would. I would thank you. I thank you so very much for coming on to
Anil
and
bhai,
coming
I'd
on
just
to the
like to
show.
add one thing. I just wanted to add one point, which Sumanto, I think, will also agree with me, that this modern education system has started with a basic assumption that we are separate from nature,
Yeah,
or we are superior from nature. And if we're going to redesign and reimagine education, we have to start that we are part of nature and we cannot survive as human beings without nature. So the entire design has to be nature centric. There's a new field, biomimicry. So we have to bring this thing that we learned from nature in design and reconnect people back to the basic building blocks of life, which is living in harmony with Mother Nature. So thanks a lot.
thank you so much, and I would very much like us to get connected some other time to carry forward on this wonderful discussion. Thank you, Manish ji.
Well,
Thank you, Sumanto ji. Thank you so much for
thank
coming
you.
on.
Thank you for the
Great.
invitation. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you so
and
much.
dialogue.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.